Hey guys, Kenny here, Ken Small Engines. Today in the driveway, we have an Echo PB580-T. Will not start because of the carburetor. And I asked the customer, do you want a Chinese carburetor or do you want an OEM carburetor? And he said, what do you recommend? I said, well, do you ever want to see me again? He looks at me and says, well, if you don't want to come back in a year, you get the OEM carburetor. So he said, what's the price difference? Brand new filter, by the way. I said, oh, so it's OEM carburetor, about 50 bucks. I said, the Chinese carburetor, probably 20 bucks, but there is a difference in quality. So he's like, huh, all right. He says, maybe I'll go for the, the OEM. I said, all right, good choice. So anyway, he went for it, and we got in part number A02, where is it? A0210043331. Echo is now owned by Shindao, or vice versa. So we have a brandy new Echo incorporated carburetor. So let's take this one off. T25, T27, they both work. Very simple on these. The two screws, that stays. I loosen up the gas cap so the fuel doesn't spit out. You got your fuel line, your primer line, your, well, actually it's not a primer, it's the recirculator, and then your linkage. So we take off the fuel line. All right, we take off the primer, and then we tilt it in to take off the linkage. There we go. There's your oldie. And what was happening is, you would, let me go over here with it. You would push in the primer, all right, and see, it doesn't come back out. That means you got an internal clog to the carburetor. We'll talk about that later, what the internal clog is all about, and we'll talk. All right. So, better angle, is that better? Let's see. Yeah, it's better. All right, let's take out the factory jobby. Like I said, very simple. I already changed out the fuel filter in there because when I took that carb apart, I actually took it apart last week. You had a little bit of sawdust fines inside when you took it off, so on the screen. So I always change the fuel filter. All right, so basically, first thing you do is the linkage. So you gotta, there's the linkage. The purge hose, the fuel hose. Very simple, huh? Purge hose, the fuel hose. Not hard to do. That's it, guys. There's really not much to this. It's a very simple repair. All right, put your two bolts back in. Not much of a, and this thing's in beautiful shape. I mean, the gaskets are good. Everything's good about it. Nothing really worn or anything. I think it's about 5 years old, but it's in phenomenal shape. So we're going to screw this back together. The hoses are on, the linkage is on. We're going to screw it back together. We're going to pump it up until we see some fuel in that bulb to know it's purged and that everything is wet inside there, because if the carb isn't wet inside, it ain't going to run. So, not too tight. You don't want to warp the plastic. All right. Now we're going to put the filter tray back on. It's a windy, cool day today. It's actually not too bad. It's a little cool, but it's not too bad. All right, let me screw this down. Like I said, this guy hasn't done anything with this. He hasn't tuned it up. He hasn't done anything. It's always run for him. It's always run good, and he's always used canned fuel. Because I asked him at first, did you use your own fuel? And he said, no. I said, good. All right, so let me get you so you can see. Let me Let me pump it a few times. All right, now it's full of fuel. And if you notice, let me see if I can show you here in a zoom in. All right, watch that fuel bowl. It's full of fuel, and watch. Yeah, it's full of fuel and it's coming right back. That means there's no internal blockages. Everything's working properly. Now you're purged. Okay, now let's start this baby up. Let's see. Let's start this baby up. Make sure we're not blowing everything away. Let's get my tools out of here so I don't blow my tools away. All right, choke on. We already purged it. Tighten the gas cap. I'll give it a little bit of gas. All right, ready? Here we go. Oh, let me give it some more gas. I'll give it full gas. See what happens. Shaky. Never seen one shake that much though. I wonder how the mounts are. Yeah, they look good. There you have it. Not much to it. Replacement carburetor. And let me explain about the carburetor to you. All right, this carburetor here. Basically what I did was I took it apart, and let me get a screwdriver, I'll show you. All right, guys. All right, we're talking about this carburetor. Like I said, you pop on it, it'll squirt out, but if you notice, it doesn't come back. It takes a while for it, if at all, okay? So I took this off real quick. And yes, I have JIS screwdrivers, but I don't care at this point for this, okay? I do have JIS screwdrivers, the correct screwdrivers. And what I thought when I took this off, you still in the frame there? Yeah, okay. So usually when these things don't work properly, it's one of a couple of things, okay? That valve in there is a duckbill valve, okay? And if the duckbill valve isn't working, it won't work properly. So I'll show you. This duckbill valve is okay. There's no problem with it. It's working properly, so there's no problem with that. But also what you have in there inside this passage is a check ball. And if there's junk in there, all right? You know that this passage was clear because you saw it blow out, so you know that's not it. So at that point, you know it's an internal blockage somewhere, okay? So the diaphragm, everything was fine, everything looked good. This part of it was nice. It was actually good. The diaphragm was working, everything was cool. So I said, all right, let me take off the other end. So I took off the other end, and that's where the fun started. Oh boy, the little ants are out. All right, now on the other side, the fuel pump gasket and the fuel pump diaphragm had all kinds of white powdery, I tried to clean it off, but it was like a white powdery residue on it, and there was all kinds of fines in the screen, sawdust fines, there was white powdery residue. So I knew the thing had been sitting with fuel in it that evaporated. So I said to myself, okay, I could spend $20, $25 on a Chinese carburetor, but I'm sorry, $20 to $25 on a Chinese carburetor, and who knows what would happen. Or I could take this, I could dip it in my ultrasonic, clean it, get a gasket and diaphragm kit, but think about it. It would take, say, total time on my part, say an hour, okay? Between taking it apart, putting it back together, gasket and diaphragm kit, the chemicals for my ultrasonic tank, what's that gonna cost? Say 30 bucks for an hour of your time, 10 bucks for a gasket diaphragm kit, another 5 bucks for your chemicals, all right? There's your 50 bucks. Why not just buy an OEM carburetor that you know is gonna work out of the box? So gave them the option, you saw it works perfect. If it's up to me, guys, and it's a nice, decent machine like this one is, a beautiful machine, spend the 50 bucks. Just buy an OEM carburetor, okay? Sometimes you can get them a little cheaper depending on the model, but just do the OEM. It's not worth spending all your time doing this. Now, what I'm gonna do though, I will in a future installment, I have one of those blowers. I actually have a PB580-T. That's not running right now, I got it used. I'm going to take this carburetor, I'm going to rebuild it, ultrasonic and everything, throw diaphragms in it, and I'm gonna see if it works on my PB580, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll get that out pretty soon. But guys, Chinese versus OEM, go with the OEM, all right? Is it worth your time? Not really. All right, if you couldn't get the carburetor for a couple weeks, my dealer, L&R Power Equipment, Monroe, Connecticut, got this carburetor, the OEM, in one day. So you know what, it's worth the 50 bucks. All right guys, that's it for now. Take care everyone, we'll talk to you soon. See, as it's drying, you can see all that dried up fuel that's on there. I tried wiping it off with solvent, it didn't come off. It's really on there and it's causing this gasket to be all crusty, and God knows what's inside the carburetor. Just wanted to show you that there's all the crusties I found. All right guys, talk to you later.